Okay, so you want to own a hot dog cart. You find a good spot on a busy street corner, fire up the grill, slap a few dogs in the buns, and watch the money roll in. Simple business. Cheap to start. Everyone needs lunch. What could go wrong? Almost everything, actually. But here's the part that almost nobody tells you. And the reason this video exists: a well-run hot dog cart in the right location can clear over $100,000 a year in net profit on a starting investment of under $15,000. That is a return on capital that Wall Street hedge fund managers would genuinely be embarrassed by. And yet the same business, run slightly differently, in the wrong place, with the wrong habits, quietly bleeds money until there is nothing left to bleed. So let us start at the very beginning. You want to get in. What does that actually cost you? The good news is that a hot dog cart is one of the cheapest food businesses on the planet to launch. You are not building out a restaurant kitchen that costs $150,000. You are not buying a full-sized food truck that runs anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000. A basic used pushcart, stainless steel, steam table, propane burner can be found for around $2,000. A brand new, fully certified commercial unit with built-in refrigeration runs closer to $8,000. But the cart itself is just the beginning. You also need refrigeration, either built-in or a heavy-duty separate cooler, which costs between $400 and $1,500. You need a water system, a freshwater tank, and a wastewater tank. Because health codes in almost every American city require mobile food vendors to have self-contained hand-washing facilities. That is another $250 to $800. You need a point-of-sale system, because people do not carry cash anymore, and turning away card payments is turning away roughly 70% of your potential customers. Budget $150 to $600 for hardware. And then comes the first real surprise: permits and licenses. Depending on your city, getting legally authorized to sell food from a cart on a public sidewalk can cost anywhere from $200 in a small Midwestern town to well over $10,000 in a major metro. We will come back to why that number can go completely off the rails in certain cities. But for now, add between $200 and $1,500 for initial compliance. Then you need insurance, public liability coverage, because if someone bites into your hot dog and has a problem, you need to be covered, which typically runs between $500 and $2,000 per year. And you need starting inventory: sausages, buns, condiments, drinks, napkins, containers, propane, bags of ice. Budget $500 to $1,400 for that first stock run. Add it all up and you are looking at a total startup cost somewhere between $3,800 on the very low end and $15,000 for a properly equipped, fully compliant commercial setup. Compare that to a restaurant where you would routinely spend $100,000 before serving a single plate of food, and the hot dog cart looks almost unreasonably attractive. But cheap to start does not mean easy to make profitable, and that distinction is where most new operators get themselves into serious trouble. Now, before we go any further, if you are finding this breakdown useful, consider subscribing and sharing this video. There is a lot more to unpack here, and you will not want to miss what the monthly numbers actually look like. The physical cart you are operating is not just your equipment, it is your entire restaurant. A standard hot dog push cart occupies somewhere between 15 and 30 square feet of space. In that footprint, you need to store raw inventory, keep cold food cold, keep hot food hot, serve customers, handle payments, manage condiments, and maintain enough cleanliness to pass a surprise health inspection. There is no back office, there is no storage room, there is no walk-in cooler. Every single operational function of the business lives inside that small stainless steel chassis. This matters economically because the size of your cold storage sets a hard ceiling on how much you can earn in a single shift. A cart with 10 cubic feet of cold holding capacity can only store so many raw sausages and chilled beverages. Once that inventory is gone, you are done for the day, whether it is noon or 4 in the afternoon. The cart is not just a vehicle. It is a tightly calibrated production machine, and its physical limits become your financial limits. So what does a single hot dog actually cost you to produce? Let us run the numbers. A standard all-beef frank, the kind that comes in bulk from a wholesale supplier, costs somewhere between 25 cents and 85 cents per unit depending on quality. A top split bun runs 12 to 35 cents. Primary condiments, mustard, ketchup add about 4 to 10 cents. Packaging, meaning the paper boat the hot dog sits in plus a couple of napkins, costs another 3 to 10 cents. At the low end, a basic hot dog costs you around 44 cents to produce. At the high end, with premium ingredients, you are around $1.40. The industry average for a well-run cart sits at roughly 76 cents per unit. Now you sell that hot dog for somewhere between $3 and $6. Industry average retail price is about $4.50. Subtract your 76-cent cost of goods, and you are left with $3.74 of gross profit on a single hot dog. That is a gross margin of 83%. 83 cents of every dollar in revenue is available to cover your operating costs and then drop into profit. That number sounds almost too good to be true. And in a sense, it is, because what looks like an 83% gross margin at the unit level encounters a long line of expenses before it ever becomes money in your pocket. Here is a cost that barely registers on any single transaction, but quietly costs you hundreds of dollars a month. Condiments. A squirt of mustard costs you about 1.5 cents. Ketchup, 2 cents. A spoonful of sweet relish, 3.5 cents. Diced onions, 4 cents. None of that sounds like anything. Then someone asks for cheese sauce. A single 1-ounce serving of warm cheddar sauce costs you around 18 cents. A serving of hot chili meat sauce runs 28 cents per portion. Now imagine you are running a busy cart doing 2,000 transactions a month. If you let customers help themselves to condiments, which many carts do, and the average customer uses 2 or 3 times a standard portion because they are just grabbing and going, you could easily be absorbing an extra 20 cents in unrecovered condiment cost per transaction. Over 2,000 monthly sales, that is $400 a month in margin erosion. $400 that simply disappears, not because of bad food quality, not because of slow service, but because the mustard dispenser had no pump and people poured freely. The fix is a calibrated squeeze pump or employee-applied toppings. The principle is that small leaks, multiplied by thousands of transactions, become floods. Now here is where the business actually starts to get interesting. Most people think of a hot dog cart as a hot dog business. It is not. It is a transaction business. And the single most powerful lever you have is not selling more customers. It is selling more to each customer you already have. A cart that does 100 transactions a day at $4.50 each grosses $450. A cart that does the same 100 transactions but upsells each customer to a hot dog, plus a bag of chips plus a drink, say an average order of $8.50, grosses $850. Same street corner, same foot traffic, same 100 customers. Nearly double the revenue. This is the single most underrated move in mobile food vending. Combination bundles, a hot dog, chips, and a cold drink for $7.50 feel like a deal to the customer and are significantly more profitable for the cart because each add-on item carries high margins of its own, which brings us to drinks. A bottled water purchased wholesale costs you about 15 cents. You sell it for $2. That is a gross margin of 92.5%. A canned soda costs you 35 cents and sells for $2.50, an 86% margin. No cooking, no prep. The customer points at the cooler, hand them a bottle, they pay. It takes 4 seconds. And in many urban cart operations, the daily beverage profits alone are enough to cover fixed overhead like commissary rent, propane, and permit costs, before a single hot dog even hits the grill. Now let us talk about the single most important decision in this entire business. More important than the cart you buy, more important than the sausage brand you choose, more important than whether you take cards or cash. Location: a hot dog cart does not generate customers. It intercepts them. You are not a destination. You are an ambush. The best operators position themselves at the exact point where hungry people already are, already moving, and already in a mental state where buying food is the next logical step. Office districts work because white-collar workers pour out of buildings every weekday between 11:30 in the morning and 1:30 in the afternoon, looking for something fast. They have 20 minutes. They do not want to wait in a restaurant line. A cart right outside the lobby captures that impulse before it has time to make a different decision. The caveat is that weekends and holidays produce almost nothing in these locations. Construction sites are a hidden gem of the industry. A major commercial building project employs dozens of laborers who break at the same time every day, have no easy food options nearby, and will happily spend $8 to $10 on lunch. The risk is that when the project ends, you lose the location entirely. Transit hubs, subway exits, bus terminals, train stations generate enormous early morning and evening rush traffic. Tourist areas drive weekend and seasonal volume. Nightlife zones near bars and entertainment venues can generate extraordinary late-night sales on Fridays and Saturdays. The key insight is that you are not selling a hot dog. You are selling convenience at the exact moment someone feels hungry and does not want to walk further than 20 feet to fix it. Location is the product. The hot dog is just the excuse. Now, the economics of location get complicated very fast when you factor in what it actually costs to legally operate in different cities. In a standard mid-sized American city, think Columbus, Ohio, or Charlotte, North Carolina, a mobile food vendor permit typically runs between $500 and $2,000 per year. Manageable. A line item in the budget, not a crisis. And there is New York City. The city issues approximately 3,100 street vending permits citywide. The official permit fee is quite modest, around $200 for a 2-year period. But here is the trap. Demand for those permits massively exceeds supply, and there is an informal secondary market where operators rent permitted cart slots from existing holders for between $15,000 and $25,000 per year. In Manhattan, you are paying that before you have sold a single hot dog. In New York City's parks, the situation is even more dramatic. The Parks Department runs competitive public auctions for concession spots inside places like Central Park. The most desirable locations, the Central Park Zoo entrance, the area near Bethesda Fountain, have seen winning annual bids exceed $200,000 per year. For the right to park a cart and sell food, that changes every single calculation in the business. A cart paying $200,000 per year in location fees needs to generate extraordinary daily sales volume just to break even, let alone profit. For operators in normal cities paying reasonable permit fees, those economics are completely alien. Beyond the location permit, almost every major American city also requires mobile food vendors to operate out of a licensed commercial commissary kitchen. A commissary is an approved commercial facility where you store your cart overnight, fill your fresh water tanks, dispose of wastewater, prepare certain food items, and handle food-safe storage. Monthly commissary rent typically runs between $250 and $1,250 depending on the city and the facility. This is a fixed cost that hits you every single month, 12 months a year, whether you work 22 days or 6 days. Rain, illness, holiday. Commissary rent does not pause. Let us run the real daily economics for a well-managed owner-operated urban cart during a standard midweek business day. 100 hot dog sales at $4.50 each. 50 combination bundle sales. A hot dog, chips, and a drink at $8 each. 20 standalone drink sales at $2.50 each. Total gross revenue, $900 from 170 transactions. Against that $900, direct food costs $156, card processing fees $27, propane and ice $14, daily share of commissary rent $30, permit and insurance overhead $15, transportation $15, spoilage reserve $12, equipment maintenance reserve $10, total daily costs $279.50. The owner-operator keeps $620.50 in a single day, pre-tax. That is 69% of gross revenue, extraordinary compared to a restaurant operator clearing 5 to 8%. But there is a critical distinction here that most people miss completely, and it changes the meaning of that number dramatically. When you personally stand behind that cart for 10 to 12 hours a day, $620 is not pure business profit. It contains two distinct things. The first is your wages, what you would have had to pay another human being to do what you just did. A cart worker in most American cities earns between $15 and $22 per hour, plus payroll taxes and insurance. At 20 hours of active cart time per day, including prep, operation, and cleanup, the labor value of what you just did is roughly $400 to $500. The second component is the actual return generated by the business itself, the return on the capital and systems you built. So when someone tells you their hot dog cart makes $600 a day, the honest question is, how much of that is wages they're not paying themselves, and how much is genuine business profit? A cart netting $11,000 a month in operating cash flow, operated personally by the owner working 200 hours per month, contains about $5,000 in labor value and $6,000 in true economic enterprise profit. That distinction matters enormously the moment you try to hire someone, because suddenly that $5,000 in invisible wages has to become a very visible payroll expense. When you bring on an employee, your gross contribution margin drops by somewhere between 20 and 25 percentage points. An employee working the cart for $8 to $15 an hour, plus payroll taxes, which add roughly 15 to 20% on top, cost you between $14 and $22 per hour all in. For a full operating day, that is a daily labor cost of around $150 to $220. Now your net daily income on the same $620 day might be $400 or less, which means you need to either run the cart longer, sell more per customer, or find a second cart, because hiring is the first major scaling wall in this business, and the math does not survive without a deliberate response to it. The business also has a break-even threshold, and understanding it changes how you think about good days and bad days. Monthly fixed costs for a standard urban cart, commissary rent, permits, insurance, utilities, run about $1,250 per month. Average selling price per unit is $5. Average variable cost per unit, food, packaging, a proportional share of card fees, is about $1.25. The difference between those two is your contribution per sale, $3.75. Divide 1,250 by 375, and you need 334 unit sales per month before you cover fixed costs. That is 17 units per day across 20 operating days. 17 hot dogs is break even. Everything beyond 17 hot dogs per day is pure profit contribution. 17. You need to sell 17 hot dogs before you are making money. That is an extraordinarily low threshold. It is also why this business model at the unit economics level is genuinely compelling. The fixed cost structure is lean enough that a modest customer base produces meaningful income quickly. Then comes the problem that no spreadsheet can solve for you: rain. The moment clouds roll in and the sidewalk clears, your revenue drops between 50 and 70%. A severe storm, heavy snow, or a genuine weather event can cut your daily sales by 80 to 95%. And your commissary rent still hits the account. Your insurance premium still auto-pays. Your permit does not suspend itself because it was cold. Unlike a restaurant where customers come inside and sit down regardless of rain, a street cart depends entirely on pedestrian foot traffic choosing to stand outside. When that traffic disappears, so does the revenue, but the costs keep running. Weather risk is the structural asymmetry at the center of the outdoor vending business. Peak season in most American cities, late spring through early autumn, can produce extraordinary daily earnings. January through February in Chicago, Minneapolis, or Boston produces almost nothing. The operators who survive this cycle are the ones who treat summer income as a capital reserve to be managed, not an income stream to be spent. You are compressing your annual earnings into roughly 7 or 8 high-productivity months and then drawing down reserves through the slow season. Now let us talk about one category of revenue that has the potential to completely change a single day's economics: event vending. A music festival, a street fair, a major sporting event, a parade, a city-organized outdoor market. These gatherings compress large numbers of hungry people into a tight space with limited food options. A cart that normally does 170 transactions in a full business day can do 600 to 1,200 transactions at a well-attended festival. Average order values go up because event pricing supports higher selling prices. Customers at a festival are in a buying mood. They are spending money on everything, but event vending is not free money. Event organizers typically charge participation fees that range from a flat $500 to $2,000 for entry, or they take a percentage of your gross receipts, anywhere from 15 to 30%. At 30%, the organizer is collecting almost a third of everything you earn before you have covered a single cost. Your break-even volume at an event is dramatically higher than on a normal operating day. Then there is the logistics problem. Events often happen away from your regular commissary. You need to transport extra stock, arrange backup propane, manage a larger cold holding situation, and potentially staff up. If you have hired a helper for the day, your labor cost is real. And if the weather turns bad, if the festival is rained out, you are sitting on a $500 entry fee, $1,000 of event-specific inventory, and 0 transactions. Non-refundable events can be the best days of your year or some of the most expensive disasters. The operators who profit consistently from events are the ones who negotiate hard on the fee structure, carry precisely calibrated inventory to avoid spoilage, and maintain backup logistics for every scenario. Now let us look at what 12 months actually looks like across a full operating year. A well-run single-operator urban cart might work 22 days in a strong month like May. Peak foot traffic, perfect weather, every lunch rush fully loaded. That same cart might only work 12 days in January because extreme cold cuts foot traffic to almost nothing, and the owner makes a rational choice to stay home rather than operate at a loss. Across a full year, a realistic operating model produced around 210 actual working days. Annual gross revenue from those days, at $900 per day average, comes to roughly $157,000. Against that, subtract annual food and beverage costs of about $27,400, annual card processing fees of $4,725, commissary rent at $7,200, permits and insurance at $3,600, transportation costs at $3,150, spoilage at $2,800, and an equipment maintenance reserve of $2,100. Total annual expenses come to about $53,400. Net retained income, approximately $103,500 per year on a single owner-operated cart. Now remember that this includes the owner's personal labor. Subtract a reasonable imputed wage for the hours worked, say $5 per day times 210 days, which is a conservative estimate of what you would pay someone else, and the pure business profit is still extraordinarily strong relative to the starting investment of under $15,000. The payback period on the initial capital investment in a well-run operation is typically 3 to 6 months. That is a capital return structure that almost no other business at this scale can match. The picture changes when you try to grow. One cart has a natural ceiling because one location can only produce so much demand, and one human being can only process so many transactions per hour. Multiple carts multiply revenue. A fleet of 3 to 5 carts in different high-traffic locations can gross between $350,000 and $600,000 per year. But multiple carts also require multiple employees, multiple permits, expanded commissary arrangements, active management, inventory auditing to prevent theft, and the kind of logistical overhead that dramatically compresses the per-unit margin. A single owner-operated cart runs at a net margin between 55 and 70%. A fleet of 5 carts with hired operators runs at a net margin of 20 to 35%. Total income goes up. The percentage of each dollar you keep goes down. The business becomes a genuinely different operation. Less about personal labor, more about systems and management. The operators who make the multi-cart model work are the ones who treat it like a business before they expand. Standardized recipes and portion sizes written down and followed. Point-of-sale systems that match every sale to inventory so you can see immediately if something does not add up. Scheduled wholesale deliveries to a central commissary that reduce the cost of each supply run. Documented daily setup procedures so that any trained employee can open a cart the same way every morning. Without those systems, a second cart does not multiply profit. It multiplies problems. So is it worth it? The honest answer is, it depends on one thing more than anything else. Location. A great hot dog cart in a low-traffic area is a slow financial drain. An ordinary hot dog cart in a high-density, legally accessible location, a busy office district, a transit hub, an active construction zone, can generate income that would genuinely surprise you. The business is compelling when the operator secures a compliant, high-foot traffic spot, runs a tight, focused menu. Hot dogs, drinks, chips, maybe 1 or 2 premium add-ons. Controls condiment and portion costs, manages inventory to minimize end-of-day waste, and treats the cash flow from strong months as a reserve rather than immediate spending money. Under those conditions, one cart run by one person on a starting investment under $15,000 can clear over $100,000 in annual net income. The business fails when the operator pays $15,000 to $25,000 a year to sublease a permit in a city with a closed permit system and does not sell enough volume to cover that fee. It fails when the menu grows to 12 items, service slows to 90 seconds per order, and the lunch rush line backs up and dissolves. It fails when the owner hires someone but does not have inventory controls, and slowly loses $10 to $20 a day in untracked giveaways and portioning errors that do not show up until the quarterly review shows margins collapsing. The hot dog cart is not a simple business. It is a deceptively precise one. The margin is high because the product is simple. The risk is real because the constraints are physical and regulatory. And the difference between the operator who clears $100,000 and the one who quietly closes after 8 months is almost never the quality of the hot dog. It is the discipline of the operation behind it. If you want to dive deeper into the fundamentals of running and evaluating a business like this one, check out the detailed business guide linked in the description and pinned in the first comment. It covers the frameworks that apply across industries, not just food vending. If you made it this far, you clearly care about understanding how money actually works inside businesses that most people never look at twice. That is exactly what this channel is built on. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe if you have not already. It means a great deal, and it helps more people find this content. Thanks for watching.